Today we're going to make stuffed cabbage rolls. My family loves these. They devour them whenever I make them. They're very easy to make. Here are the ingredients. Let's get into it right now. Okay, I always like to go over the ingredients. It's about helping you, though it helps me to have everything brought out too. We're making stuffed cabbage, okay? Stuffed cabbage, really a delicious recipe. You need cabbage. So the recipe says 1 cabbage. You'll get about 16 leaves from 1 cabbage, 18 leaves. The leaves go from larger to smaller. You can piece 2 leaves together. If one's ripped, you can do that too. But I think for insurance, you're better off having 2 cabbages, okay? Because these aren't the biggest cabbage, all right? We're not gonna need all of the second one, but it'll be good. So we'll have enough leaves. So in case we have extra stuffing, that we can have enough leaves to still stuff it. All right, makes sense, right? For that stuffing, we have 1 large onion that I finely diced, 1 large onion or 2 medium onions. It's good to have a lot of onion in here. So that's a lot of onion. We're just gonna saute that in 3 tablespoons of butter. That's the only cooking part really you're doing for this stuffing mixture. And then we're just gonna combine it with 1½ teaspoons of paprika, 2 teaspoons dried oregano. There's a ½ teaspoon of black pepper in there. There's 2 teaspoons of fine sea salt over here. 1/4 cup of minced parsley, fresh, this is just flat leaf Italian parsley. I have 1 cup of cooked rice. If you want a little bit heavier rice here, you don't want to use as much meat, you can do that to save a little bit of money. That's totally fine too. We have 2 pounds of meat here. So 1 pound of ground chuck and 1 pound of ground Italian sausage. Now I'm making, this is a Polish recipe, though there's a lot of other versions of this too. There's a German version. Everybody does it a little differently. But what I can assure you is that the one I'm trying to do is kind of like the Polish version. There wouldn't be sausage in it. It would be all ground beef. So if you want to keep it more traditional, go with all ground beef. Last ingredient in here is 1 egg, okay? So that's gonna give us our stuffing, and it's a lot of stuffing. And then we'll stuff our cabbage leaves that we're going to cook first. We're gonna cook these heads, and then we're gonna braise it in a really simple sauce, but a delicious sauce. That consists just of 1 6-ounce can of tomato paste, 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of cider vinegar, and then about 1 liter of water, or 4 cups, hot water from the kettle. I already have my kettle set over there. I'll just turn it on when we need it. And that'll give us enough to almost cover these cabbage leaves in our baking dish. Cabbage gives off a ton of water, so the wet soup is gonna get even soupier. So what I like to do is just at the end, I'll power reduce the sauce, and then we'll add a little bit of cold butter. It'll give it this really nice sheen. Traditionally, this would probably be done with Campbell soup. I'm not kidding. Traditionally in America, okay, Polish immigrants, they would use Campbell soup. You'll see online dozens of recipes for that. Essentially what we're making is just like a Campbell, quick Campbell soup. Power reducing at the end and thickening it isn't really traditional, but I like it that way. I think it's better. All right, first thing I want you to do is get a large pot of salted water up to boil. Okay, so yeah, these cabbage, this isn't that bad. I think the leaf might have been taken off already. Just wash them. I washed them, I dried them, but I think this leaf is good. Sometimes the really rough outer leaves you don't want to use, but you know, the further out, the bigger they are, the easier they are to make a nice big cabbage roll. Okay, so listen, I have 2 cabbage heads. Normally the outer leaves will be a little thicker and, you know, not the best. They're a little rough, but they're the biggest, so it's easy to stuff them. These are already have been removed, and I rinsed them and then dried them off, okay? Because you want to clean that outer leaf that's in the store. We just want to get rid of the core here, okay, this core part. So cabbage is kind of hard, so just be careful as you cut around. You could use a smaller paring knife for this too. Can't get it in there, you can use something like this too, which is just a boning knife, okay? That'll give you a little bit more flexibility. Just be careful. You can take your knife like this, and then you can cut off the edges a little bit, because this part here is gonna be the bottom stem that we're not gonna really use anyway. Okay, that's fine. And there's a little bit of core in there, maybe a little too much. Maybe I'll take out a little bit more. Okay, just like that, take that out. I'm gonna do it for both of them, and then we're gonna boil these in salted water. Okay, water's boiling. Don't put the water too high, because when you put the huge cabbage in there, it's going to, it might overflow a little bit. Okay, salted water, just do 1.5% salinity, 1% salinity, whatever. Probably gonna have to do 1 at a time. Maybe I can fit both in there. All right, I fit them. All you need to do when you're doing this, okay, about 10 minutes, 8-10 minutes, The cabbage is one side's gonna just float up high, so just make sure you turn it every couple minutes so it gets even cooking. Just want the leaves to get really soft and pliable without becoming completely mush and falling apart. And then we're just gonna put it in a colander. It's as simple as that, all right? I don't think I need to show you any more than this. So what I will do is I will stick it on my other burner over there, and I will show you how to saute onions. 3 tablespoons of butter. It doesn't have to be exactly 3, it could be 4 too. Just make sure you get all the paper off. You don't want to eat any paper. And then that's our 1 large onion that is finely diced. You can do it even finer than that. You can throw this all in a food processor if you like. If I had a little bit more room here, I would just keep a food processor ready to use because, like, you know, at some point you don't want to keep chopping onions, carrots, all that. And for the stuffing here, everything could be really compacted. In fact, some recipes I saw, they did grated onion, which I think would be a good idea. Just a pinch of salt, okay? And I want to cook these onions in this butter here until they get moderately caramelized, like a little bit of color showing. So maybe like 15 minutes. You don't need to do these for only a few minutes, right? Just let them go. And this is actually the perfect amount of time because by the time those are done and they're drained and cooled a little bit, we'll be able to take the leaves off, everything at the same time. This has been about 6 minutes. See how just a tiny bit of brown right here in the middle, but nowhere close. So I'm gonna let them go for another 5 to 8 minutes. Don't burn them, but you know, try to get a little bit of color on them. So here are the onions now. Those look pretty good. All right, put it off to the side. Let that cool for a few minutes. Cabbage I pulled out already. They're both here in the sink. Let them cool for a second before you start to try to remove the leaves, but also keep the water boiling that you boiled the cabbage in because I'll tell you, sometimes you boil them like 10 minutes and then you're like, oh, I need another few more minutes, all right? Sometimes you need a lot more. You want to get them nice and soft, the leaves. Got my kettle going over there just to heat up that 1 liter of water. I got my oven on 350 degrees. Set the rack to the middle level. I have my water that we did the cabbage in, still boiling over there in case it's not soft enough. That's our cabbage, okay? That's been a few minutes. You can try to pull 1 leaf off like this, okay? These ones will be soft because they're the outermost ones. It's sometimes the interior of the cabbage that takes the longest. And it's very hot in the beginning, so I just kind of like let it cool, give it like 5 minutes. These are soft. I might have cooked them a little bit too much, but it makes it easier when we're folding them, and it'll be less cooking time when you braise them. You know, they might rip a little bit more here. Also, this cabbage is just thinner than the other head I had. Again, you want like these nice big leaves like this, and I just lay them out here. The ones that I rip, this one's ripped. Okay, this was like the outer leaf of the other one. See that? Just save them. You can still use them. You can patch them if you want with like another piece. It's as simple as that. Basically, each leaf will be one on top of another, so then you go to the next area to remove the next one, okay? Just gonna keep doing this until we got all of our leaves off. See, like, these are nice and big. They'll be easy to stuff. Okay, so I have plenty of leaves here. I probably have like 20 something. I also have some ripped ones over here, okay? I have some ripped ones over here. These outer leaves are like kind of mushy. And then the interiors, you know, these will start to get harder again. So that's why I said like you can throw this back in the water for a little bit to make it a little bit more pliable. Like, see, like this is how they look, like those more interior ones. And then this is more of an exterior one. It's a lot thinner. And I like to prep them all before I do the stuffing or anything, and then get them off to the side. So this is an interior one, okay? It's fairly hard. So these leaves, the edges will curl a lot. I'll just kind of flatten this down right here, and it's this stem area right here is what always gives you the issue. So just to cut some of it out. So now you're able to spread it out a little bit more. You can just kind of turn this together, okay? And then now you have a round area again that we'll be able to fill. Okay, so I have a big stack of prepped, ready to go ones. So I don't know how many is there. It's probably like 18. I have more cabbage, so I can do more if I want. I also have pieces that I broke that I can use for patching. And actually, this is a really good way to do stuffed peppers too, but almost every recipe, it just uses raw meat. The one disadvantage to doing something like this for a stuffing is that you don't know if you seasoned it well. So there's a couple of things you can do. After you mix everything here, you can stick a little piece in the microwave until it's cooked through, try it. You can also take a little piece, fry it in a pan. Or you can just trust me and know that my measurements and everything are exact and the best in the world, always. I've had nobody laughing at any of my jokes today because Tara wasn't here. She just got back now. That was funny, Tara.
And I still didn't laugh.
That's 1 cup of rice, or roughly 240 grams. Cooked rice, okay? Cooked rice. Okay, that is 2 teaspoons dried oregano, half a teaspoon of black pepper, 2 teaspoons of fine sea salt, and 1.5 teaspoons of paprika. All right, we want to get a lot of flavor in here. That's a 1/4 cup of parsley. I absolutely didn't have to shake over there like that. I could have just dumped it in. I mean, it's like, you know, half the things that people do for like on camera is for the camera. Am I missing anything? No, that's, oh, am I missing anything? I'm missing the most important thing, the onions that we made. Could you do raw onion? Yes, you can. How do I know? I just know. It'll be good too. But I chose to fry them to give them a little bit more flavor. All right, broke out the bro gloves because we're not messing around here. That's another thing that's used all over TikTok. I want to really combine this well. Very simple sauce. 1 can of tomato paste, US can, 6 ounces, all right? 170 grams. This is a standard can in the United States of America. Okay, 2 tablespoons of cider vinegar, or roughly 30 milliliters. That is 1 tablespoon of packed brown sugar, or about 15 grams. Jim, why are you doing grams? Why are you doing milliliters? Well, let me tell you why. Our cookbook is coming out in October, definitely, but it probably will be earlier. We have put everything into those measurements.
Just to clarify, yes, measurements will be in grams, but they will, of course, also be in cups.
Oh,
in
of course.
Yeah.
That's 1 quart, roughly 1 liter. And just mix this together. We just want to get this completely, it's like a tomato water almost. Could you use passata in here? Absolutely. And maybe a little bit of water then. You know, you could use Campbell's soup, which is what many recipes use. Okay, and once this is dissolved completely, we're gonna season with a little bit of salt and a good amount of pepper here. Now, why am I using a little bit of salt and not a regular amount of salt? I'm doing that because I am going to power reduce this later. When we braise all these cabbage leaves, the cabbage leaves themselves are gonna give up a lot more water. It's gonna make it liquidy. I wanna thicken the sauce at the end, and I'm gonna power reduce the sauce. If I power reduce something that's already salty, it's going to get saltier, all right? This is like kind of cooking 101. This is actually something that, now if you say, oh, I don't intend to do that, you can season with more salt now. You can season it exactly to taste. Okay, good amount of pepper.
Almost to that point, if you were to use Campbell's tomato soup, you would not need to add liquid to it. You would use the condensed version, not add liquid, because the cabbage leaves give up so much water.
Yes, and you'll get it, and it'll be thicker. And honestly, it might be better that way, just to use the Campbell soup. I'm telling you. So let's get the stuffing. Now, I'm gonna take 1 leaf. Now, we already prepped our leaves. Now, again, I said these extra bits over here, longer parts, you don't really need them. You'll be able to like fold over perfectly, and it might be a little too much cabbage. It doesn't matter. This is a 30 scoop, number 30. Do a heaping spoon of that right now. Okay, about this much, right there. Okay, you can even bring it back further. So you see the line here that we made? This line? Just kind of put it over like this, and then you can put your stuffing back even further. Okay, now just fold. Burrito, like here, and then just over. And then there is stuffed cabbage number 1. I'm gonna put them in this pan here, seam side down, and just get them in there. We wanna get them all tight next to each other. Let's do another one. So that leaf was like, that's like a hard leaf. I wanna see if I can find a softer leaf to show you.
If they're too hard, you could just pop it back in the water, right?
Yeah, you can pop it back in the water. It gets a little, you know, they might get a little too soft though, and they could break when you're trying to roll them. So, you know, people can decide. Okay, so this is a much softer one. I'll show you. Same thing again, heaping. Number 30. Oh, and by the way, put this in a little bit of water so it doesn't stick, even though it didn't stick right there. Just folding tightly, taking that excess there, folding it in like a burrito. Okay, and then coming over. You can see that part here. See this part that I was cutting before, the vein? How it's a little thick there still, so I'll take that off. Okay, and then you have that excess on the front there, and we can just close up and make another burrito. Like that. Tuck it in tight. You know, this is a half sheet baking pan with higher walls. I don't need that much, so I'm gonna fit it in a 9x13. When you pack these in, you wanna pack them fairly tight. Those wouldn't have been tight enough, so this is what we have right here. I got space for 1 more. So right here is all broken. You know, it's fairly flimsy, some of these leaves. So what you can do is just take one of your rip pieces, just put it right there, okay? That's it, simple as that. And then I have my last of my meat. By the way, each one of these spoonfuls is about 60 grams worth, okay? Or about 1/3 of a cup, okay? Maybe 70 grams. 60 to 70 grams, or if you want to be exact, you know, use 1/3 of a cup. So now that I did that, I patched that area. Now I can just roll. I can fold in, and then I have a lot of excess here, which I don't need all that, but I'll use it all. Okay, and then very tightly. Okay, and then I'll make a little bit more space there. And remember, seam side down, and I will fit that last one in there. Okay, so now we are very tight in here. Okay, 18. So again, the recipe will make roughly 16 to 22 or 24, depending on how large you make them. Okay, I did put a little bit of this liquid on the bottom here, but don't worry, it's so liquidy, it's all gonna get to the bottom anyway. If you had a thicker sauce, you would wanna put some on the bottom so everything doesn't get stuck. And all we're doing is just pouring this in. Okay, it doesn't have to cover it all the way, but this will. Now listen, don't worry if you do 2 dishes and you don't cover it all the way, it's gonna be fine because we're putting foil on top of it. In the thumbnail, you can see they're a little brown on top. What I like to do, but I probably won't do it today because I'll keep it traditional. Traditionally, you're not supposed to do this. We're gonna cook these for 2 hours with the cover on it. Then we're gonna check for tenderness. They're probably gonna take another hour. They don't really take 2 hours for me. Normally they're always about 3. They can really cook for a long time, essentially until you don't want them to fall apart, but essentially until they're super tender. That last hour, you can take the cover off if you like, but you don't have to, you can just leave it on. All right, let's just get this tight. We're in a 350-degree Fahrenheit oven. Get it very tight, and this is just gonna be able to cook them until they get soft. All right, we'll be back in 2 hours to check for tenderness. So these cabbage rolls have been in the oven for 2 hours exactly. There's a lot of fat in here from the sausage and from the ground chuck. There's a lot of liquid in here still. What you can do is, if you uncover it now, you're gonna get evaporation, and then you can let it go another hour, and you might not need to thicken the sauce at the end. You might not need to strain it. You might not need to add butter to it. I still prefer to do it the other way. I'll just check right now, but I think we're just gonna cover it and let it go another hour. You can check this, like the thicker stem part area for tenderness. Now these are pretty tender already, but they can definitely get more tender. So I'm just gonna cover it again and put it in for another hour. Okay, it's been 3 hours. 3 hours for cabbage rolls. Yeah, they do take a long time, and sometimes people will do them all day. I mean, you can do these ahead of time and they'll be great the next day. There they are. Okay, we had a lot of evaporation in our sauce, so we're not gonna have to do too much work here, but we will still do the butter thing, which I think you're gonna like. I do. All right, so all I'm gonna do here is just put these on a platter. Just let them drain a tiny bit like I'm doing here. We don't have that much sauce left in the pan. What I like to do here is, I'm gonna show you, even after doing these in there for 3 hours covered, we don't have that much liquid left. The cabbage themselves, they just give off a lot of water. So what I do is I just take a couple paper towels. I wanna just tilt this forward. All the juice is gonna go there, like the water, okay? And I'm just gonna pat it dry. Just let it all go to the edge. These are super hot. They'll stay hot in the few minutes that we're gonna make the sauce. If you're worried, you can tent them with foil. Okay, real quickly, the sauce. I have a little sauce pot there. That's all you need. Pour it all in. I am not defatting this at all, okay? Even after the chuck and the sausage being in there, I'm not gonna do that. I want maximum fat. Turn this up, bring it to a boil, and we're gonna just reduce this just a bit. It depends how much liquid you have. Right here, I have less than a cup. Say you braised it for only 2 hours. You're gonna have a lot more liquid here. You might have 2 cups. You might have 2.5 cups. You'll wanna reduce it more. But this is initially why we didn't put a lot of salt in the sauce, because we're going under the assumption that we're going to have to power reduce it, which is gonna concentrate the sodium levels. Okay, this is thick enough. Turn off the heat, alrighty, like this. And this is cold butter. Okay, I'm putting it in just like 1 cube at a time, and I'm gonna whisk it. This is gonna give a nice sheen to the sauce. It's gonna fatten it even more, but it will be good. This is 3 tablespoons of butter, by the way, okay? Which I think is the perfect amount for this. Okay, so here's the sauce. Here's a knife. You're not gonna really, you might need it to tear through there.
It's better than the other night.
Better than the other night?
Yeah.
Same ingredients. You should be able to cut them with a fork like he's doing, but you know, if you don't cook them long enough, you maybe use a knife.
That's really good. I really like cabbage. I mean, I love meat. Meat's like my favorite thing. And the cabbage is what makes it in this dish specifically. I just really think like the meat and cabbage and the tanginess, it's like all different flavors and it's just like perfect. It's very good.
Thank you. What could make it better? Would you want a little heat in there? There's no spice at all. I don't think that would be a bad idea.
Maybe like a tiny bit of spice. Not too much where it's gonna be like a spicy dish, just like a tiny bit so it's like has some.
And I've seen some German versions where it's like it's a very dark brownish sauce. What do you think about that instead of the red sauce?
I actually think a dark brown sauce would be.
Like kind of like the rouladen that we made?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did the Patreon video, full meal, pork loin, braised pearl onions, James. Real pearl onions, not the frozen ones.
In pearl onions.
balsamic like an agrodolce, and we did risotto Milanese.
I'm gonna give this an 8.5 out of 10. That's good, by the way.
What would you do to make it better?
Like I said, spicy, and maybe like I'm just like changing it a lot because like I know this is like not the signature dish, but maybe like red cabbage would be better.
Red cabbage? I do like red cabbage, but I think red cabbage is too small to stuff. That's the problem.
Yeah, no, but I do think that would be better. I think it would taste better.
The red cabbage leaves are they're not big enough, so it's hard to be able to roll them. All right, well, James, thank you for giving that a solid 8.5.
You're welcome.
Is there anything I could have done to get like a 9 or a 9.5?
My mom just told me that there was rice in it, and I didn't even realize there was rice in it, so you should definitely put more rice in there.
You just want rice?
More rice.
No meat, just rice?
Yep. No. Meat and rice. Like a good ratio.
You want more rice?
You want to know that the rice is
like 30% rice, 70% meat. I think there's like 1% rice and 99 meat. I didn't even get it.
Okay.
Good job.
Thanks. We'll see you next time.